recording so that anyone who wasn't able to log in or who joins us later will be able to refer back to our presentation today. We appreciate that it's a very busy time of year for all of you. In fact, some of your colleagues are already finished with school. They're the lucky ones, I suppose. So we did get a couple notes from folks who are not able to join us. But for those of us who are online today, thank you, and we have a great program for you. So we're really excited to dive into that. This is Jennifer Grams, and Michelle Aber-Giffen will be joining us soon. Just to give you a quick overview of our agenda for today, we do have some guest presenters with us from the Geometry and Construction program. Scott Burke and Tom Moore are joining us, and they have a nice presentation for us. You may recall we did look at some of their resources on one of our earlier webinars, and so we're excited to have them live with us today to tell us more about what they're doing. We'd also like to take an opportunity to just go around the horn and ask all of you to just introduce yourself to Scott and Tom. Just tell us your name, the courses that you teach, and how much experience you have in the classroom. And then finally, at the close of our meeting, we will go ahead and, if we have the time, ask some reflection questions or have discussion related to the presentation and the PLCs in general, since this is our final meeting of this group for the year. So before we do introductions, we're still waiting for a few folks to join on the webinar today. I just wanted to give you a reminder that we will be hosting a breakout session at the PACTech conference coming up at the end of June, specifically on June 27th, where Hans Meter from our firm will be facilitating a session where your groups will be able to report out on your work during the year, and also to meet in person to talk about any additional research or any materials that you may want to continue sharing. So just a reminder on that. And if we could just see by a show of hands, if you could click on the raise your hand icon, if you are planning to attend the PACTech conference, please raise your hand. Okay, so Gary. Anyone else that's currently planning to attend or is already registered? Okay. Great. Well, we hope that some more of you will be able to join us. I did see a note that the hotel reservations, the block of rooms, will be being released soon. So if you are planning to attend, please make note of that and get your reservations in. And if you need that information, just send Michelle or I an email, and we'll forward that to you. So. Okay, well, before we get to our guest presenters, and I did warn them that I was going to put these pictures on. These are taken from their website. I'm sure some of you have seen that from our earlier conversations. Why don't we just take a moment or two to introduce ourselves to Scott and Tom. I'll click, right now we have your microphones muted, but I'll just go down the line, and looks like we're alphabetical by first name. Ask you each to introduce yourself, just say your name, the courses that you teach, and how many years you've been teaching. So we'll start with Charles. Go ahead, please. Okay, he might not have audio at this moment, so we'll come back. Gary, good afternoon, thanks for joining us. Gary, are you able to hear us? Okay, this may go quickly. This is always the risk in doing this. Why don't we see John Lewiski. Good afternoon, John.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We finally found someone. Yes, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
All right, well, I'm John Lewiski. I work at Berg's Career and Technology Center at the East Campus, and I'm sitting right next to my counterpart at our West Campus, Jeff Miller. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. This is Jeff Miller. I am the the carpentry instructor here at the Berks Career Tech West Campus. I've been teaching for, I guess this is my 23rd year now. So I've been around for pretty many years, and I've got to see a lot of things that have passed through over that time period in education. Some good and some not as good, but always hoping to make things better for young people.
Okay, great. And John, how many years have you been teaching?
This is my first year at Berks, but I have 7 years experience teaching building construction occupation at my prior school.
Okay, great. Thank you both for joining us, and also that reminds me that if anyone else is sharing a computer connection with a colleague, please send us a note for attendance purposes so we can make sure to get that noted. Let's see. Joy. Good afternoon, Joy. Okay, Joy, we can't hear you, so if you could just type us a note as to which school you're from and your role. And finally, Steve Weber. Good afternoon, Steve.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks for joining us.
My name's Steve Weber. I teach at Rennie Muhlenberg Career and Technical Center. I've been teaching here for 32 years. I taught the homebuilding apprentices for a number of years. I teach and operate at the Goggle Works Center for the Arts. I run the wood shop down there. That's about it.
Okay, great, thank you. So those of you who maybe were having audio difficulties, if you'd like to just type in a note, please do so, and otherwise we'll try to maybe come back to you when we have some opportunities for discussion. Okay, so with that, why don't we go ahead and jump into our program. I am going to, let's see, change the presentation to Scott and Tom. So as we do that, Scott, you should see a box pop up on your computer. And
okay.
Great, yep, we see your screen, so that looks good. And if you'd like to introduce yourselves and then jump into your presentation, we're all ears.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Scott Burke, teacher at Loveland High School in Loveland, Colorado, and career and technical ed teacher, finishing up my 11th year. Actually, today is the last day of school for us, so while I have you, if the PA system comes on during this webinar, we do apologize for that. We just finished school here about a half an hour ago, so sorry about that. I've taught everything here from automotive and manufacturing to drafting and then into construction. We are finishing up our 6th year of the Geometry and Construction program, which is the program that we are going to share with you guys today.
And I'm Tom Moore. I am a math teacher and also construction certified here. And again, welcome, and please ask questions as we go. It's better to go ahead and ask those questions, and we'll try to address those.
Thank you. Excuse me, if this is Jennifer, I could just interject for a second. Thank you for mentioning that. If anyone does have questions or comments as we go, please raise your hand or type those into the question box, and Michelle or I will interject as needed. And just a note, for some reason we're just seeing a black screen right now, so I'm not sure what is showing on your computer at the moment, Scott?
What's showing on my computer is the actual presentation.
Okay. Oh, there we go. We're back. Okay.
Let's do that.
So if I, hold on one second, if I make this full screen, then that's when you see black.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay, let me try something else here. Hold on one second. So if I go from here, are you still seeing a black screen?
No, now we're seeing the full screen of the slide. That looks great.
Okay, are you seeing the GoToWebinar control panel on here?
No, I think that only shows on your screen.
Oh, good deal. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Then we'll
All right. Great. Take it away. Thanks.
Okay. Oh, hold on one second. Sorry.
There we go. Okay. About 7.5 years ago, each of us, for our own reasons, got to a point where In the math classroom, I knew that I was not addressing the needs of the kids. They needed to see how the math was going to be used, specifically geometry. And Scott had his own reasons, and we just made a decision that it was time to make a change in education. And waiting for someone else to do it, we would still be waiting. So we both kind of took it on ourselves to take a look at the construction curriculum. And really important, the construction curriculum is what drives it. And then the geometry, it is a full rigorous geometry course that comes in and supports the construction. And on your screen you see the balsa wood house. It's an ugly balsa wood house. And there are kits out there that will make it much prettier. But what we do is that instead of handing them a kit, we just hand them a bunch of balsa wood, and they are in a scale, and they are to create a scale model of the house that we are actually going to build on our campus for that year. This particular house here was a little two-bedroom that we built about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So Tom kind of alluded to it. We build a complete house for Habitat for Humanity locally. We have a little bit of background about Loveland High School. We're a comprehensive high school, 9 through 12. We have about 1,700 students in the overall school. And annually there's anywhere from 160 up to about 200 students that are in our program. Tom also mentioned a little bit about we each had our own motives for doing this. My motive for doing this as the CTE teacher was that I was seeing my programs in CTE just dry up and vanish. And what was happening was that as people would retire out of career and technical ed, all of a sudden I would see new hires in other departments, primarily math and also language arts. But I really wouldn't see them replacing anyone in my own area. And so as a young teacher coming in, I knew that I valued what I did, and I really liked teaching the kids, and that I wanted to make sure that my program stuck around. And the only way to do that was to really partner with core academics to make that happen. So that was kind of the start of this. When we started this program, we did not start by saying, let's go ahead and build a house with 14 and 15-year-old kids, because I think that would have been a little ambitious on our part. So the balsa wood house that you're seeing here in this slide, the start of that was that we were going to do this with just a CAD architecture type of class, because as the CTE teacher, I felt, sorry. So as the career and technical ed teacher, I felt like CAD and architecture were pretty safe classes and that they weren't going to be looking to cut those programs out of our overall program. So that was kind of the start of it. Tom mentioned a little bit about the kit houses that are out there. First year of the program, we did the kit houses. We found that in doing the kits that are on the market from Hurley and Paxton Patterson and a number of other places, that the math part was completely taken out of the kit. The kids didn't have to do any kind of calculations or anything in order to make that happen. So that's kind of where we got to this. Basically, we've uncovered that there are two ways to do most things related to CTE and to math. And usually they don't meet up and the kids don't make the connections. So on the CTE side of things, over on the right side of this slide, you see that there's an architect scale there. And that's a very common way that we would teach scaling, whether it be blueprinting or scale model building in a CTE type of classroom. On the other side of that, though, you see the math way, and the math way is the proportional thinking model. It wasn't until Tom and I got together and really started dialoguing about how we were each teaching this that we realized both of these methods were necessary for kids.
On the state test that math teachers and students are accountable for, they must know the left-hand side. I can guarantee you that in Pennsylvania, even though I haven't looked at it, there's proportional thinking on that test somewhere. On the right side, and I'll tell a true story about myself, I had one of those funny-looking straight edges in my desk drawer in the math department. I thought it was just a straight edge with a handle and didn't understand it. However, many math teachers say, well, don't give them anything that takes the math out. Well, that's a math bias, I guess. The architect scale is a production tool. and we need production tools. If that was not true, that microwave and that cell phone that you have should be thrown away. So there's a balance, and math teachers are beginning to believe that now. There's a balance in production tools. I mean, the whole conversation around calculators. Should we allow them? Should we not? Both ways are valuable, and we teach both ways, and that's very important. We are both in the same classroom with these 9th and 10th graders, about 45 kids in a classroom. We teach the geometry, and then those same geometry kids then go outside and build on the, in this year's house, 1,100 square foot home. It's very important for us that that we're both in the classroom together.
So talk about building that thriving partnership and generally what that looks like. We did not create a new curriculum, and I think that a lot of people have a misconception that that's what we did. Instead, what we did was we reorganized the curriculum so that the two areas, construction and geometry, fit seamlessly together. And we go towards about probably 90% contextualized learning in everything that we do. On the other side of that too, what's really important to note as the CTE teacher especially is that our geometry classes are the ones that build the house. And the reason that that's so important is that as CTE, we really have to rebrand ourselves in order to get the community to buy in and support it. You know, one of the things that we were facing in our own community was that parents were coming back and saying things like, well, my college-bound student isn't going to be going out and framing houses or isn't going to go into construction or any of those kinds of things. We really had to talk about this is a new way to take geometry, and it's not that we're 100% training your student to go out and be in the trades. It's that we're giving them a little bit of experience in high school as real world as we can get it. As a matter of fact, I have to tell parents every year at back to school night that your kids will come into geometry and construction. Primarily on the construction side, they will be experienced in everything from the subfloor up, but they will be masters of nothing. So don't think that after they get done with this class that they're going to be able to go and remodel your basement or remodel your kitchen for you, because that's not realistic for these kids yet. So that's one of the things that we have to do. As far as the branding, though, and marketability of things, if I contact news agencies locally and tell them to come and see my construction class building a house, I get no responses on that because they see that there is nothing newsworthy about that. But when I contact them and say, come see my geometry classes building this house for Habitat for Humanity, all of a sudden I get news media, I get newspapers, I get radio, I get everyone that I need to have. And some of the videos, I know that earlier Jennifer had mentioned that you all have maybe seen some of our stuff on our website. The videos are all uploaded on there, and so you won't see those in today's webinar, but you're welcome to go and look at all the different news media clips that have been over the years of this program.
And really important, we had to make sure that our geometry course that we teach has all the rigorous geometry of any geometry course at our high school. There are a lot of geometry courses out there that are, I would say, they don't cover all the objectives, but they're labeled geometry. We were not allowed to do that by our district. Our state testing does not allow us to teach a watered-down geometry. And more importantly, the kids, they need to be able to go on into additional mathematics if they so desire. In fact, they're required. But by combining geometry with construction, we look at the construction from the trades aspect, you know, how to frame a wall, laying out in 16-inch centers, framing windows, drywalling, electrical, etc. But at the same time, we also talk about from the engineering side of things, testing trusses. Why does the truss fail, and what can be done to strengthen that truss? So we approach it from two different angles, the engineering side and the trade side. That allows us to attract kids that perhaps would not normally track into the CTE area. We have kids who are going into architecture, civil engineering, plumbing, electrical, construction management, etc. So those are the kids that we get.
Okay. Um,
So one of the things that was kind of driving decisions by me, for every 100 kids I would get into ninth grade in Colorado, and by the way, Pennsylvania and the rest of the nation is pretty darn close. These numbers won't vary more than 1 or 2. We would get 70 of them through high school graduation. I had to ask myself really an important question. Am I successful if I fail 30 kids? A third, roughly, almost a third. Of those 70 kids, 44 of them will walk into a 4-year school. Of those 44, 30 of them are going to come back for their second year of college. And finally, within 6 years, there's only 21 of that original 100 that will leave with a 4-year degree. We have been preached to so much about being college ready. And even though it's changed to a college and career ready, there's still a tendency to put more emphasis on the college ready. We do believe very strongly, and we have kids and test scores and such that prove it, that you can be both. It's not get them ready for college or get them ready for a career. It's get them ready for both, and we can do that, and we have been successful at that for the last 6 years. And so that was really one of the things that as we were creating this program, we wanted to make sure that we were for all kids, not just some kids.
Mm-hmm. Other things that kind of informed us. So everything in our school district, and it's probably very similar for all of you, everything has to be data driven. And so there has to be some type of data to back up any kind of change that's coming down the pipe. So when we first got this whole thing started, we really had to go through and find data nationally to support our own vision of where we wanted to go with things. And one of the pieces of data that we used was the NAEP test, or the National Assessment of Educational Progress. If you ever look at a graph of that, back from the 70s all the way through to the present, and you look at all of the different math initiatives that they've done nationwide. Some places, like I'll use Texas for example, where they do something called the 4x4 block, which requires all students to take 4 full years of math education. You look at other places around the country where they're sometimes doubling kids up on math classes, where if you're in, say, Algebra 2 and you don't get it from one teacher in period 1, well, guess what? During period 3 then, we're going to re-enroll you into Algebra 2 and we're going to put you in with another teacher doing the exact same material. You know, those are some of the initiatives that we see nationwide, but basically the progress on this is that it's flatline progress. There's really nothing that changes on this no matter what the initiative is. So that's one bit of data that we use, saying, you know, we think that we can influence this by changing how we educate kids in terms of the delivery method, and that's really the key to focus on here.
Also, I'm sure you're familiar with William Daggett, Bill Daggett, and the model schools and Quadrant D learning. And the only way of achieving that Quadrant D, that higher level thinking, is to combine. Academics alone cannot get to Quadrant D. I mean, academic teachers are good perhaps at Bloom's taxonomy and getting them up to synthesis and analysis and what have you. However, we are lousy at applying. And that's why kids ask the question, where am I ever going to use this math at? Only way of being able to really attack and get to Quadrant D and get to that higher level thinking is to pair with a CTE teacher and let the CTE teacher talk about how it's used and to actually use it in their own discipline. And so that's one of the things that we use to launch ourselves here in Colorado.
Other data that we used pretty heavily was about the same time that we started the development phase of this was the research for math and CTE coming out of the National Research Center for Career and Technical Education and Dr. James Stone. Now, when we first were getting this up and going, we were sent down to a conference just to listen to James Stone present his newfound data at the time. And he was saying that if you put a math teacher and a CTE teacher together and let them contextualize just 10% of the CTE lessons with math, that you end up with some pretty awesome results. And that's what his whole math and CTE study does. When we were driving back and forth from Denver in that conference, though, we really thought, we probably could improve on his approach. Me as the CTE teacher, I knew that I didn't want to do 100% of what he was preaching because I wasn't trained to be a math teacher. And quite frankly, I wasn't confident enough to go in and do that. Even 10% of the time, I didn't want to do that. But I knew that based on our facilities and based on our school district, that if we partnered together, where Tom is still the math expert, and then we're utilizing my skills of being, in this case, the construction expert, that we could leverage both of us to have a really solid program. And that's really what we did. We shot when we developed this to be as close to 100% contextualized as we could, and we figure that we've ended up somewhere around 90% contextualization, where we are showing the kids where the geometry fits in all of the construction aspects.
So it is really not a new course. People, again, will say, oh, what's about that new class? No, it's geometry, and it is construction. We are hooked together. We team teach it. That means that both of us are in the classroom in front of 45 kids at the same time. We're also both on the construction site working with 45 kids building a house at the same time. Yes, 45 kids building one house at one time. We have we want to go for a more active learning, increased student engagement. In other words, we have activities. Instead of the math teacher being the stand and deliver, the math teacher needs to take a back seat to activities, and those activities come out of the construction world. Everything from stair building to testing of beams to testing concrete, you name it, calculating, number of shingles, all that good stuff. What it has done for us is that in the math world, we have an authentic project. It answers the question, why do I need to learn this? Also, though, from the CTE world, it has allowed Scott to provide rigor for his classes, which the reason, again, he alluded earlier, is that he was working, whoops.
Would you please start 5201? 5201.
He alluded that he had to do something, or otherwise CTE would go away. And I think both of us value CTE way too much to allow that to happen, if possible.
The other thing, too, that I'll share with you is now, after being 6 years into this, our CTE program across the whole district has actually seen a shrinkage, if you will, at other schools that are not doing this same approach. And so we've seen that, and I think it's not that administrators or anyone are out gunning for us. It's just that as we're trying to get kids through higher level academics and things, that something has to give way, and unfortunately that traditionally in our district has been the CTE side of things. So again, not in our building, but in other schools, I definitely know that that is the case. So specifics of the contextual model. Now this is our specifics of how we operate our program. So first of all, Tom talked about both teachers are in the classroom at the same time. So the way that that works in our schedule is that on the computer and on our paperwork, I am assigned a certain number of students for my first period class, and Tom is assigned a certain number of students for his first period class. Then we would switch places during second period. So I would get the kids that Tom had during first period, and Tom would get the kids that I have first period. Now in reality, what we do is we partner together and we put all of those kids for a stacked block, so 2 periods in a row, into the same classroom. On the computer it doesn't look that way, but in reality that's how we run everything. That way, when Tom is teaching math, I am actively a teacher on the math side as well. So I'm doing all kinds of other things, tutoring kids in math, helping them get things done, I'm grading, I'm doing a number of other things. When we roll to the construction site, Tom is supervising kids in the construction things that he feels comfortable doing. And that's really the key as we've kind of worked through this whole thing. Again, we talked about not a new class, but a new delivery system. That's definitely the case with everything that we do. Tom talked a little bit about things being very activity driven, and that's really how we operate the math classroom, and then of course the construction classroom with that authentic project. Classes are anywhere from 45 to 50 students for the 2 teachers in that stack type block. and that the classes are blocked back to back. Real important for me to say also on this note, my own personal background, and I don't know, some other CTE teachers out there listening might feel the same way. Again, I was not trained to be a math teacher. I was trained to be a CTE teacher. And I really was not comfortable stepping into the role of being a math teacher 6 years ago. My own math background was that I stopped doing math at geometry in high school. And then I had 2 years of my high school, my junior and senior year, where I didn't take any math. After that, I went to Colorado State University, majored in technology education and training with a minor in construction management. I took a really flunky math class that I would call at Colorado State that was called the Individual Mathematics Placement Program. It was all done on a computer, and if you were really good at memorizing answers to tests, eventually, after you took a certain number of tests, the questions would start recycling themselves. So that was really how I got through the basic classes that I needed to related to math in college. I never thought when I left college that I would ever become anything remotely related to math. But, you know, demands of the career, that definitely became necessary as time went on as I was teaching. And now I'm confident in saying that I probably I could teach 7 of the 8 units with no problem. I'm really comfortable tutoring kids in math. It's taken a little bit of time, but on the professional development side, it's been a great experience for me because some things I just have to learn right alongside the kids, but that's also a good thing too. So we're going to jump into some key practices of how we approached everything. And some of this stuff is things that people might want to start writing down just as kind of notes on this. So when we first got started, we did not want to create a program that was for just those kids, however you define those kids. Back when we got going, I was the full-time auto shop teacher. Auto shop in our building had become the dumping ground for every single person that did not want to be in school, no matter what. And reality was that I was getting burned out because counselors and special ed and admin at the time, they had discovered that I was really good at working with a low-level group of students that were very unmotivated. And so what was happening was that I was ending up with those kids sometimes 2 and 3 periods a day. And I was wasted. I was so tired of being in that role. The other thing that was happening at the same time was that we were adopting the International Baccalaureate program in our school. We were seeing that there was a lot of funding and a lot of effort going towards this top 10% of students. Our question when we partnered together was, what about the other 80% of kids that there's really no funding going for and it's just kind of happening, and there's this trickle down and trickle up type of effect that supposedly is going on, but we knew that it wasn't really happening. What are we going to do for them? And that's really where we started this.
So all kids, we have 51% enrollment, female enrollment in our construction class. We started with 22%, and as of this year, we're at 51%. That took some work, and it took partnering with the geometry courses. We have a cross-section of our school of free and reduced lunch. We also have a cross-section of kids who are special ed and also ELL. We have about 50% of our kids want to be in some type of a construction field, whether that be electrical, plumbing, framing, any type of trades, construction management, architecture, civil engineering, surveying, etc. The other 50% now, they come in just because they want to learn mathematics a different way, and they want to participate in building of a house or a habitat family. We cannot water down the mathematics. Again, I've heard a lot of geometry classes, you know, we're told, well, we teach geometry. Well, do you teach all of geometry? It's real easy to tie the perimeter area volume type of things, but can you tie similar figures? Can you tie congruent triangles? Can you tie quadrilateral properties all to construction? And the answer is yes, you can. We've done it. We teach that. That's how we do it. We tie all of the mathematics back to the construction world. So cannot water down the math, and we show that, I believe, the next slide. If you look at our averages on our CSAP score, CSAP is our state testing, and it is a 50% multiple, or excuse me, our tests are 50% multiple choice and also 50% open response. So our state testing, all of our kids take them, predominantly 9th and 10th grade kids in our class. The first column there on the left, GIC, is geometry construction. The numbers won't mean much to you. It just kind of shows you a relative ranking. If you take the scores over the last 5 years average, we haven't received our 6-year score. Our 5-year average is 624 versus the four-wall classroom at Loveland High School. That's your second column, is 582. Berthoud High School is our small school. It is also our math and science magnet. It's 600. Our next school over, Mountain View, MVHS, is our Project Lead the Way school, also an arts magnet at 585. Thompson Valley High School, which is labeled as an AP school, and it's at 586. Our scores have consistently been better, and I think that's an important thing to consider. And the reason being, anybody who does their mathematics, you learn it better. If I'm going to teach somebody how to change a tire, I can either give them a book and let them read it, or I can say, let's go out and let's actually do it. And if we do our mathematics, we learn better.
Development of 21st century workplace skills. I think most CTE teachers, similar to myself, we have something called advisory boards that we have to be accountable to. I went to an advisory board meeting prior to starting this program, and I was tired of hearing advisory boards say things like, you're not training kids who are employable to me. And it wasn't until I started probing as to really what they were talking about. I started probing because I think as teachers we just automatically assume, oh, the kids don't know how to read, they don't know how to write, and they don't know how to do math. Well, it was interesting talking to the advisory board because not once in probing did they even say anything about any of those 3 topics. Instead, they talked a whole lot about all of these things. Can they work together as a team? Can they take pride in their craftsmanship? Can they self-manage themselves? Can they communicate? I mean, all those things are components that they were really talking about. The cool part about our program is that all of those things are natural byproducts. As we build a house, as we do math, as we are doing cooperative grouping with kids through that whole process, they learn all about all of this.
And it's interesting that recently there's been some research that's come out, and employers are telling us that academics alone is no longer enough. Getting them college ready is not enough. They are asking, employers are constantly asking for the technical skills, but also the employability skills, and that's what we're after. And so those of us who have lived in the ivory tower of the high school, we need to realize that academics alone is not enough, and that research now is confirming that.
Other things, key practices, as the CTE side, and you're going to start to kind of see that CTE is the driver of this program, and the math is kind of in the back seat. If you ever switch that, if you're going to do a full contextual program like this, if the math becomes the driver for it, it's a turnoff to the students, and the students pick it up right away. But another key practice, though, is that the program had to be 100% self-funded after the initial startup money for the program. And I knew that when we built a house, I couldn't go back to the school district every year and say, hey, we built a house this year, we're getting ready for next year, and by the way, I need a check for another $30,000 or $40,000 or whatever, because no school district can really fund that. So there's a little bit of added pressure on us. Our test scores are analyzed every single year by third parties. After that, though, we also have the pressure of building a house and selling a house at the end of the school year in order to fund the upcoming year. When we sell these houses, we don't turn a profit on them. We actually charge the cost of the program, so that includes the building materials, it includes the things for the students that we run the program, like their field trips and all those kinds of things, and then also tool replacement with that. We cannot turn a profit on the money for that, but that's kind of how that works. A lot of people will look at this and say, well, what are some other projects other than just house building? If you look at the lower right-hand side over here, this is a sample of one of the houses. As a matter of fact, this is the 4th house that we built. All of the houses that we do are modular houses. So for us, we found that it's cheaper to bring the house to the kids than it is to bring the kids to the house. Also, there's a lot of liability things that you get around when you do that. So what you're looking at here is you're looking at the back parking lot of our school. There's the houses right there, and this building that is right back over here, that's actually our math classroom. So we have math classroom and build site right there next to each other. A lot of people will say, though, we're not interested in building a house. What other types of projects are out there? We have some other places around the country that have started geometry and construction. To date, we've trained probably about 60 different sites nationwide to do this. Some of them are building houses just like us. Some of them are doing smaller projects like the ones that you see here. And some of them are taking our program and adapting it to fit into Project Lead the Way or into CAD and architecture. It really just depends. But dog kennels would be another type of project that you could have. We really have found that if you're going to go after high-level mathematics, you do have to have a little bit of some R value related to some insulation. You have to have a little bit in terms of heat sources. You have to have a little bit in terms of electrical and plumbing. That really does help if you have some of that. Here's an example of small cabins that are here in the upper right-hand side. There's a school district out of Syracuse, Indiana, which is fairly close to you guys, I believe. They, yeah, for me, geographically challenged, sorry. They are building small campground cabins, and so this is kind of an example of one. We trained them probably about 3 years ago, and at this point, they have something like a 12-year waiting list to build these cabins for a KOA campground that's in their state. Down in the lower left-hand corner, horse stables. This tends to be a bigger option that is popular in states like Texas, for example. If you have a little tack room, like what you see there over to the right, you can put all of those needs that I mentioned earlier into that. So different kinds of options and different types of projects. So again, those are the 4 really key practices that we've kind of stumbled on. We're getting close to the end here. Success leads to more success. We are definitely huge into that. The math side of everything, we are definitely in line with all the Common Core standards, which Colorado has adopted, just like Pennsylvania. High schools that work that model out of the southeastern part of the state, or out of the country, we are definitely in line with, I think it's 8 of the 9.
There's 10 tenants, and there are 9 of those that we meet. Because as we didn't want to create something in a vacuum, so we really did go out and try to pull the best of what we could find everywhere. Because we wanted, if it was successful somewhere else, why not do it here? And so the Habitat for Humanity, that link allows us to attract kids and that have a service learning focus, and we strongly believe in service learning and getting kids involved in the community. And then last, you want to talk about the IB?
Yeah, the IB, I mentioned earlier that IB was being brought into our school at the same time, and when they brought IB into our school, they really didn't want anything to do with geometry and construction. Well, last year they had an evaluation of the IB program, and IB at our own building was found to be deficient in a few key areas like technology and CTE, which they have a strand for that. And so they approached us to be part of the IB program. And so now we're fully in line with that related to the middle years program, or the MYP program. So that's kind of an interesting aspect to the program as well.
So we have a website. You've probably been there. You can download some samples of the curriculum. I think it's important that we leave a little bit of time, if possible, to let people ask questions of us. So I'll, at this point, see if there are any questions.
Okay, great. Well, thank you both for that overview. If any of our participants have questions, please go ahead and raise your hand or type those into the question box. To start with, we have a question related to your enrollment in the program. Are there other geometry classes at your school that are not construction, not part of your program? And if so, how do students, how are they selected, or how do they opt into your section?
Sure, great question. So we still have regular four-wall traditional geometry classes at our building. Students at this point are offered, when they come in from 8th grade or wherever they're coming in from Algebra 1, they're offered two different options. Actually, it's three different options. They can go honors track geometry, which is in a four-wall classroom. They can go regular four-wall geometry, which is still offered here, and they can also go geometry and construction. What has happened, though, over the last, probably especially about 4 years, is that we have become the majority way that kids sign up to take geometry. So our enrollment and kids self-select to do that has jumped, so that now regular four-wall geometry at our building is the small. I mean, they're the ones that are definitely outnumbered by us. Also, we pull an awful lot of the honors kids into this program. The honors track, I think that this year they're finishing the year with 13 kids in honors, and I think that we have 15 kids that are honors tracked kids in geometry and construction. So
of the 170 or 80 or whatever we have.
Right. So I mean, again, it's kids self-selecting to be in the program, and that's kind of how we run everything.
Okay. We have another question coming in from someone who doesn't, unfortunately, have audio capability, but he asks, how many hours per week do your students work on the house?
So we are in an 8-period day here, and it's not, what?
Do we need to type this answer also?
Oh, no, he can hear. He just doesn't have a microphone. Sorry.
Okay. So we're an 8-period schedule, and it's an alternating block. So on one day we have periods 1 through 4, and then on the following day we have periods 5 through 8. And then if we have the period 1 through 4 day, and it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday of one week, the following week we see periods 1 through 4, Tuesday, Thursday. So typical construction time, if it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, is that we have those kids for about 4.5 hours of build time.
Well, each group of kids about an hour and a half.
Yeah, about an hour and a half each time on the construction site.
So three times a week we would see those. That's 4.5 hours for that group of kids. Now we have groups of kids every block of the day.
Yeah, every period of every day, geometry and construction is running.
So on any given day, there's probably 3 hours of construction has occurred on the house.
Yep.
And that's 180 days.
Okay. Great. Let's see, another question that came in. Do you involve any other staff from other programs or other discipline areas in your classes?
Well, that's kind of an interesting question. So far in our own building, we have involved the business department before with doing some marketing and also coordinating an auction for the house. Now that was prior to our partnership with Habitat for Humanity and various other nonprofit organizations. We did that for 1 year, and that really hasn't gone anywhere beyond that, mostly because we don't have that same business teacher in building anymore. As far as we do have an interior design class that's here as well. They come out and mostly just tour the house. They don't really do anything for us, but they can kind of see a live construction site. And then our CAD architecture classes, they will come and do various things related to creating better designs and things like that. They do not design the plans for us. Our plans come from a local modular home factory, and the reason for that is that getting all of the approvals in place and the engineering stamping and all those kinds of things and permitting, our inspection organization feels like they want to go through that route rather than having students design it and then have us build it. So that's just kind of our own situation here. Other classes that have been involved district-wide, there is a cabinet program that's over at another rival high school. They have built our cabinets for us in the past, and so that's really the only other partnership that we've had.
We've had a computer class come in and do some Cat 5 wiring.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Problem is, though, if we start trying to tie in to another class on a full-time basis, it locks the schedule, the master schedule. So we have classes that come in, and partner short-term basis, but not on a long-term.
Okay. Gary, who asked the question about the number of hours per week, has a follow-up question. He says, I also build a house with my students and generally have 12 to 15 students at a time. What do you have 40 to 50 students doing all at the same time?
Sure. So when we run our math classroom, we are running in cooperative groups. And one thing that you have to get used to is that you can't think of them as 40 to 45 to 50 kids all at the same time. You have to think of them as 10 groups of students or 11 groups of students. And so the kids get assigned tasks based on the group that they're with at various points. I mentioned before that the kids are going to be experienced in everything, but they're going to be masters of nothing. Likewise with that, the kids can never be attached to any particular object in the house that they might be working on. So example, when we're framing the house, one day group 1 may go ahead and start framing wall number 7. Now they're going to take it to a certain point, but then the following period is going to pick up right where that group leaves off, so that when that group comes back in 2 days, the wall 7 may be done. They may be moving on to a different wall. Also, on the construction side of things, from the construction management standpoint, you have to get real used to scheduling out multiple things at one time. You're never just framing. You're framing, and then you're framing the subfloor, and then you're putting up roof trusses, and then right after you get done with that, you're going to be roofing and sheeting the house and doing rough-in plumbing and doing a number of other things all at the same time. And so you have to get comfortable running multiple different areas, which is really an exercise in absolute organized chaos. But I know that from other CTE teachers that have come to visit us when we're running full bore, they always say they're amazed at how well that process works. It does take some training and it does take some dedication, but it is possible.
Okay. A question that I had for the two of you. Many of our participants in our PLC group are not at comprehensive tech schools, so their students are taking their academics at a standard, sending high school. What recommendations or suggestions would you have for them?
Well, one of the things that we are fortunate, we have a vocational center also about 10 miles north of us. We only are allowed, I think, 10 slots at most for our high school in construction carpentry. So our goal is to expose the kids to all the construction aspects and to give them a feeling of basically letting them try it out. And those kids who really want to go on into, say, carpentry, we want to send them up to the vocational center and let them work very intensive in much smaller groups, by the way, at our vocational center. That is one of the things I think that local high schools, as a high school, I think we are responsible to give kids an opportunity to try out a lot of different things and find out what is it that they are interested in. And getting it, and hearing kids say, well, I'm not interested in construction anymore. See, to me, that's a success also, because now there's one career field that kid says, I'm not going to waste my money on doing. I'm going to go on and I'll try computers next, or whatever it is. So I think we as high school schools around the country, we need to be more about letting kids develop their talents.
Mm-hmm. I think that also from the technical side of things, I know our own tech school teachers have told us that geometry and construction students, when they come up to them, they already have an understanding, and so they feel like those kids are much further ahead of other students, and so that really is a great thing for us to hear. Also, as far as tech teachers from tech high schools, I would definitely encourage them to partner, if they can, with a math teacher or with a core academic teacher. mostly from the professional development standpoint. I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, I think regardless of whether you're at a comprehensive high school or a tech high school, you're an educator first and foremost, and you get to walk a little bit in someone else's shoes and kind of understand a little bit better about the pressures that they face on a day in and day out basis, which I think in turn makes you a better educator as a whole for all kids, not just for the few that you might have at any given point.
Great. Well, we have just a couple minutes left, so if any of our participants have additional questions, please go ahead and type those in or raise your hand. And in the meantime, if you'd like to tell folks how they could find out more or, you know, get more information about your program, we see your website link up there, but may they contact either of you, or what's the best way for them to learn more about
Sure. Sure. We are totally accessible from the website there through email, and also I believe that our phone numbers are on there as well. You're welcome to contact us at any point. As I alluded to earlier, we have traveled around a lot of different places in the country and done numerous trainings. We've worked with people from technical high schools in a number of different states. We've also worked with comprehensive high schools, middle schools, administrators, etc. And so we oftentimes get asked to do that. We are full-time teachers, so the best part about it is that everything you see from us, it is in play 100% of the time, with the exception of summer, which we're about ready to start. So you know, you're seeing us not just talk the talk, but we walk the walk every day.
We also get invited into local state conferences to make presentations. We're going to be at the National Career Pathways Network Conference in Richmond, Virginia in October.
We'll also be at the ACTE conference in Atlanta next, I think it's November.
End of November.
End of November. So you know, we're oftentimes there. So if you are at one of those conferences, please do come and see us. Our sessions are really fun. Some of them are going to be kind of like what you just saw. Other ones are full activity-based sessions where we treat you like you're one of our classes, and we run you through kind of a smorgasbord of activities that we can travel with, so you kind of get a chance to feel what it's like to be a geometry and construction student.
And occasionally we will have teachers come visit. In fact, we had 4 teachers from Chicago with us today.
Yeah, right up to the point that we started this.
Great. Well, Scott and Tom, thank you so much. I'm going to actually change the presentation back over to myself just so we can do a really quick wrap-up with our PLC members. But we certainly appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today. And I think, you know, what you were presenting and many of your comments really are right on point with what is taking place in Pennsylvania and what many of our PLC members are working on. So thank you both so much. We really appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to hopefully meeting you in person someday at one of those conferences.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So for our PLC members, just to quickly wrap up, I'm going to show you my screen. Just a couple of final closing comments. This is our final webinar of the school year. So for those of you who are pursuing the Act 48 credit, if you would please complete and submit your webinar response form, send that to us by June 1st. Another reminder about the PACTech conference on June 27th. And then also just a note that the SAS community site will remain open. That is, again, the place where we'll be posting the presentations from today, both our slides as well as Scott and Tom's, and also you'll have ongoing access to all the resources and the message boards and everything that are currently there. So with that, we'd like to thank you for your attendance today. If anyone has any questions or comments, I'm happy to stay on the line for a few moments to address those. But if not, we wish you all a great summer, and we look forward to talking with you again sometime in the future. Thanks, everyone.